Good afternoon. I am Colette Selecki, and I would like to welcome you to our March webinar. Thank you for joining us today. We appreciate your time. I wanted to let you know that our InfoDive support email is changing. You will see the new email listed on the welcome screen and the support tab of your InfoDive portal. The new email is providerclientservices@intrinsic.com. This will be the email to use for all your InfoDive support needs. The key report packet for today's webinar is available. To access via your InfoDive portal, select the Support tab and then Client Document Library to access. As always, we encourage you to ask questions. Click the triangle next to Questions in your GoToWebinar window. Type in your question and press Send. We will answer your questions throughout the webinar. Please email providerclientservices@intrinsic.com or call support with any questions specific to your data. When you exit the webinar, please rate the webinar on a scale of 5 down to 1. We really do appreciate any comments and topic ideas for future webinars. If you would like to mark your calendars, our April webinar will be on Wednesday, April 16th at noon Mountain Time. The topic will be Trend Report. Our topic today is navigating costs and reimbursement for drugs and supplies. Our presenter is Karen Joba. At this point, I am pleased to turn it over to Karen.
Hey, thanks, Colette, and good afternoon, everyone. Regardless of your specialty, your drugs and supplies significantly can impact your profitability. Are you getting full reimbursement from all your payers for the cost of your drugs and supplies? Are you managing your inventory? Well, today we're going to look at the InfoDive reports that are going to help you evaluate your practice. But first, we're going to start with our normal disclaimer that information shared today is solely for educational purposes. Information should not be relied upon for purposes of regulatory compliance, and it's not a substitute for your legal advice. You always want to consult with your practice's internal counsel before you make any decisions. And as always, we always use blinded data in any report or data that we share with you all. Here's our agenda for today. Excuse me. We are going to review the sources that are used for reporting the data in InfoDive, and then we're going to review these reports. We've got the top billing opportunities, the buy and bill with rebates, drugs and supplies without cost, claims paid below cost, the ASP trend, and then the provider benchmark production by HCPCS report. Now, this is not all of the reports that are available in InfoDive, but these are some of the most impactful reports that we want to show you. So let's start with just a little bit of background information. Where do we get your cost? There's actually 3 sources. We get reports each month on your purchases from Oncology Supply and on your purchases from Bessie. And then the third resource is going to be you. And you can enter your costs for items that you do not purchase from Oncology Supply or Bessie. And I'll review how to get those costs entered on the next slide. But next is, how do we determine the Medicare allowable? Well, we pull that directly from the CMS website. Medicare collects the average sales price from manufacturers, and then they typically pay that average sales price plus 6%. And I say typically because there are definitely some exceptions, but CMS publishes what they're going to pay each quarter, and that is what we report as the Medicare allowable in InfoDive. And then we're going to use your claims data to obtain reimbursement, and we compare that to the cost when those are available. We also receive rebate information from Oncology Supply each quarter, and we report those rebates and how that impacts your profitability. And then the drugs and supplies without cost report compares your reimbursement to the Medicare allowable, so you can still determine if you're getting reimbursed fairly. Now, I mentioned you can enter your own costs, and this slide is just to show you where you can add those costs. You'll find this report under the Support tab, and at the bottom, you'll see the Add Cost Info button. So you can add a single cost. For example, maybe another vendor is running a special for the month on leucovorin, and you decided to take advantage of that. You would click down there where it says Add Cost Info, and you would add in that information. Now, if you have a lot of drugs and supplies that you'd like to enter cost on, then you could download that cost worksheet for the initial load. And let me show you what that looks like. That looks like this sheet right here. So you can see it's mostly filled out for you. And all you need to enter is going to be the effective date and then the cost per unit. If you want to enter your vendor, you certainly can, but that's not necessary. And then you could email that worksheet over to support and we'll enter all those costs for you. So if you've not entered any costs, if you're one of those specialties that hasn't entered any costs, I really encourage you to do this because I think you're going to see the benefit of having the costs entered in here when we start looking at these reports. The first report is going to be this billing opportunities at a glance. Now that single dose file box on the left, that first third, that's going to show you any missed waste billing. So anytime you're doing a single dose file, if you didn't give all of the drug, then you can bill the waste. And so this is a heat map and it's going to go from red to green as the number of dollars that were missed goes up. So the closer to the green, the more money you've missed billing. And in the portal, you can hover over any part of this graph and you'll get the actual dollars missed. And then you can dive further and get that patient detail. And I'll show you that. You know, the good news is if you look at this report regularly, you could do a corrected claim and still get paid on that missed waste because you won't be having timely filing issues. And then this middle column is going to help you keep an eye on how many claims are out there that still have open balances and how many dollars are needed to cover the cost of the drugs. And that's important because you've already paid for these drugs. So having old open claims really can impact your cash flow. And then the final third part of this report is going to tell you the top drugs that were paid below cost. And when we get over to the portal, you'll see that you can hover over the colors of the wheel and you can get those actual dollar amounts. Okay, so we talked about entering costs for items that are not purchased from Oncology Supply or Bessie, but even if you haven't done that yet, you can still compare your payments for drugs and supplies to the Medicare allowable with this report. This is the drugs and supplies without cost, and you can see here there's 3 reports. There's a 1 level and a 2 level and then a detail report. You know, and the level, anytime we talk about levels in InfoDive, that just means the columns that you can change to show a different metric there. So this, if it's a 1 level, it means you can flip that first column. If it's a 2 level, it means you can flip the first 2 columns. So for example, if you wanted to look at a common drug name and then you wanted to look at the NDCs, you could flip that second column to NDC and get all that same data. We'll take a look at that in the when we get over to the portal. And this is the first report in your key report packet today. All right, this next report is the buy and bill with rebates. And this report is going to show your profitability based on your cost and then the profitability again after rebates have been applied. You know, again, you're going to notice there's 4 different reports under this tab. So you could look at cost and profit by unit or by administration. Now, when you're looking at these reports in the portal, it's also important to pay attention to those footnotes at the bottom, because you'll see that this report is based on closed claims only, and it's based on the most recent invoice cost at the date of service. So that means if you pay 2 different amounts for a drug in the same month, it's going to be based on the most recent cost. We also exclude costs that are less than $1. This report defaults to alpha order of the drug, and this is the second report in your key report packet today. But in that report for your packet today, we did sort on charges just to get your top 25 drugs at the top. Okay, this report is the claims paid below cost, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on the slide, but we will review it when we get over to the portal because the action review tab is really where the value of this report lies. You know, we add these slides so you have a reference for what's covered in the webinar. But I will tell you that just last week, we worked with a client and they discovered that their fee schedule was too low for a particular drug on this part because it's laid out pretty quickly there as to what the Medicare allowable was and what they were charging. And they were actually charging less than the Medicare allowable. So even in billing Medicare, they were only getting reimbursed what they were billing. I mean, payers aren't going to pay more than the billed amount. But the reality is it's really easy to miss updating a fee when it comes to drugs because the costs change frequently. And that leads me to my next slide. This is the ASP trend by quarter and the most recent invoice cost. And this is the third report in your key report packet today. Now, this report allows you to see how the price of a drug has changed over the last 5 quarters, and then it shows you the change between the 2 most recent quarters. Then you see the invoice cost for the most current month and what the impact would be to your practice based on the change in the ASP if you build that same number of units in that month. So for example, if this practice administers 29,401 units of Keytruda in January, as they did in December, they could expect a decrease of $18,000 if the invoice cost remains the same. All right, let's head over to the portal now. All right, so we're going to start under the support tab and how to enter drugs. So we're going to come here under this drugs and supply tab. And I'm in a blinded oncology account today. And so again, when this pulls up, you're going to see down here, you could add costs. So you're going to add this cost info. Let's just say you want to add one drug. You're going to come in here and let's just say we're going to add a new cost for this drug right here. So you'll do add new cost. And you're going to type in that CPT code. So we're just going to do this so it's easy. And then when you type that in, it's going to bring up that match. So you're going to select that, and then it's going to bring up your CPT description. So you don't have to enter in all that. It's already going to have your unit of measure. All you have to do is enter in your cost per unit, and then you want to enter in the effective date. And that's important because when you enter in that effective date, that's how we're going to know which dates of service to apply those purchases to. Again, you don't have to enter in your vendor, but I would definitely enter in your NDC because some payers do pay different amounts based off of the NDC. So I would definitely enter that in. Then you're just going to click OK, and then it's going to save it for you. I'm not going to save that. And then if I come back over here and I want to download that initial cost sheet, that's under the same tab, and that's here. So you could just download this. You could take this out to an Excel spreadsheet, give this over to your person who orders drugs that, you know, has easy access to all this. And all they have to do is put in the effective date and then put in the cost per unit. And you could see this is another way your Medicare fee per unit is going to be loaded there for you. So this is particularly, I feel like if you're in an orthopedics practice or a urology practice and we don't have all your cost, it'd be really helpful if you just download this sheet, get someone to fill it out for you, email it over to support, and then we will get it entered for you. All right, next we're going to go back up here under drugs and supplies, and we're going to look at this billing opportunities at a glance. And again, this is going to be that 3-part report. So here you're going to see the single dose file and your missed billing. And again, it's a heat map. So as you go across and you hover over, you can see how many units were missed each time. And as you get lighter in color, that means you missed more missed billing. So as you cover over here, you could see, and you could see here on this Keytruda, in October, they missed billing $5,629 worth of waste on that particular drug. They also missed on this Optilag $15,000. So if I left click on that, I could see who that patient is. Now we have single dose file missed waste other reports, but here's just a good quick way for you to see it as well. You can see it's just this one patient, and you could see the billable units per vial were 80, and they only billed 1. And so, you know, that could be just a new biller, or it looks like it's self-pay. Maybe that was the arrangement. But you know, if it was an insurance payer, you didn't bill that 79 units, that would have cost you $15,000. So an easy way to keep an eye on that. And then here in the middle, you can see the amount of cost, the amount of money you still need to collect to cover the cost of those drugs that have been administered already. Now you'll notice here too, it excludes the most recent 3 months. And that's because we know it can take a while for you to get reimbursed on those oncology drugs. And then this last part is going to be your top 15 drugs that were paid below cost. And if I hover over any one of these, like here's the Cinvanti, I could see that costs not covered were $673,000. And that's a lot of money. So you could certainly want to go take a look at some of these drugs and see where that money's going. All right, next we're going to go over to the drugs and supplies. And here's drugs and supplies without cost. And again, we're going to have 3 reports here. You also have all of these filters that you can use. This is going to default to the recent 12 months. And I'm actually just going to switch over to an orthopedic account real quick here, just because they have a lot more in this particular category usually. Come on. And I'm just going to show you how helpful this can be. So even though we don't have your costs, you can still see how you're being reimbursed compared to the Medicare fee schedule or the Medicare allowable. So I think that's going to be super helpful. And I'm sorry it's taking a little bit to load here. But as it starts to load up, anytime you see this red dot, that means you're getting paid less than 100% of Medicare. So I'm going to sort on payments here just to get some of the stuff at the top. And so here you could see that on your Monovisc, you're getting 102% of Medicare. On this Zerletta, 95.4. And as you go down, but like, let's take a look at this gel 1. On this gel 1, you're getting 96.4% of Medicare. So maybe I want to know, why am I getting, less than 100% of Medicare? I can come and I can select this in my common drug name. And then this is a 1-level flip. So again, I can flip that first column and I can flip this to payer primary. And now I can see who are the payers, who are the payers that are giving me a problem here. So as I look over here, I could see, okay, Aetna Medicare, 98%, 82%. But then I look down here, 64%. It's like, wow, Blue Cross Blue Shield PPO is only paying me 64%. I wonder who those patients are. So I can come up here and I could just isolate that again in this payer primary filter. And now I can flip this first column to patient ID. So now I can see, okay, when they actually pay, they pay me pretty well, 100%, 105%. This one particular patient, I only got 76%. Maybe we didn't collect the copay or the coinsurance on that. But look at these last 5 patients, 5 or 6 patients here. You didn't get paid anything, and as a reminder, this is based off of closed claims. So I'd want to know, why did we write everything off? Maybe it was just an error that got adjusted off, as an error, and you could go back and take a look at that. But that's one of the ways that I would use this report. All right, I'm going to go back to a blinded oncology account now. And then the next report we're going to take a look at is going to be the buy and bill with rebates report. Now, again, this report is going to have 4 different reports for you to look at. So you could either look at your reimbursement and profitability by unit. You can look at it by administration. I prefer by unit, but different people prefer different things. And then I'm going to sort on payments closed. It's going to automatically be in alphabetical order, but I'm going to sort by payments closed because I just want to see the drugs that, you could sort on charges. I want to see those drugs that I'm using the most. So as I go across the board here, I could see, okay, Keytruda, we've got 276 patients, and this is in the recent 12 months. We've got 276 patients that are getting Keytruda. We go all the way across here. You can see how many times you're administering it. The charge per unit is $120. On average, you're getting reimbursed $59.76. And the invoice cost is $55.36. So if I come across over here, I can see I'm getting $4.51 is my net cost recovery. There's not a rebate on this particular drug for this practice, so it's the same net cost recovery with the rebate. And as I look down through here, though, I can see the differences for those drugs that do have a rebate. Here, this Enhertu, it's $245 net cost recovery, but once I add the rebate, it's $265 per unit. So you could see that jumps up from $447 to $483. So overall, this practice, their net cost recovery is $7.7 million, but when they add in their rebates, it jumps up to $9.58 million. One of the things we always talk about when we train our new clients is just because you're looking and you're saying, okay, you know, we're getting reimbursed 105% of Medicare overall, we're doing really great. We always say, hey, you want to make sure you go and look at your top 15 to 20 drugs and make sure all your payers are paying you correctly, right? Because with these kind of expensive drugs, it doesn't take long for something to go south. So we would say, come up here under your common drug name and just take your top drugs. We'll start with Keytruda. And then let's flip this column to payer primary. I just want to make sure that all of my payers are paying me at least 100% of Medicare on my Keytruda, or 98%, right? Because you do have sequestration. So when I look down through here, and this is actually, you know, they're actually doing pretty good because sequestration is 2%. So this is actually pretty good. But we would say go and do this for at least your top 15 to 20 drugs. Okay, we're going to move on to the next report, which is the claims paid below cost. And that's this report right here. And again, I want to show you how you would use this report. And this report is going to pop up. It's going to show you the recent 12 months. And so you'll see here you have the claims paid below cost, the action review, and then your rules. And here where it says action needed and you have not reviewed. So this is going to show you all of these different drugs that where you were paid below cost. And you can see for this particular practice, its net cost recovery is $2.3 million. So it's a considerable dollar amount. But as you look over through here at this report, you could see here, like let's just look at this Reblozyl. And you know, it's interesting, they charged $25,000. The Medicare fee was $12,000. They only got reimbursed $3,000, but this looks like this might have been a secondary. But as you come down through here, if you thought that was going to pay more, then you can left click on here. You can get that patient and drug detail and see what's going on. And you could see every time that this patient was given Reblozyl, and you can see, you know, the different times, the different amount of payments. And so it is, you know, it's different units as well, but you want to take a look at all of this. But like, let's say you wanted to resubmit this particular one because you only got paid $3,000, 3.9, then I would come here and I would add this action rule. And I would say, yes, I need an action, and for what particular type, for this specific match, or if it was maybe this patient and this drug every time, and I would say the reason is, you know, I need further investigation, or whatever one of these drop-down reasons are, but I'm going to just say needs further investigation. And then I'm just going to put on here claims not paid consistently. Contact the payer or whatever, right? And then we always say anytime, you know, it's always good practice to always put your initials in anytime that you enter a claim, and then it's going to be active. And then you can enter in a date. So maybe you want to say, I want this to be from the beginning of 2024, and I want this to be, oh shoot, sorry. And I want this to be until now. And then I hit OK. And then what that's going to do is it's going to take this drug off of this report and it's going to move it over to another report. You know, so like let's go look at another one. Like maybe we look at this one right here, this Yervoy, and we left click on here and we're like, okay, well, they didn't pay us what we wanted them to pay, but we know that that's what it was supposed to be. So if I say I'm going to add an action rule and I'm going to say action needed is no, and I'm going to say for this specific match, and I'll say this was paid as expected. Again, just going to enter my notes, my initials, and hit OK. And what that does is it's going to remove these lines from this report so that you're not looking every single month when you come in here, you're not looking at the same claims over and over. And then when I come over to the action review though, that's where I'm going to find those claims. So here's action review, yes, here's all the claims that we need to take some sort of action on. And action review, no, there would be claims that were still there, but you didn't need to take an action on. So at least you know those claims don't ever go away. All right. Okay, next report is going to be the ASP trend by quarter. And there's two reports. There's just the ASP trend by quarter, but then this is going to be the ASP trend by quarter with the most recent invoice costs. And I think that's the most beneficial report in this particular, under this particular category. And what this is going to show you is what the ASP trend per drug was over the last 5 quarters. So you really get to see, you know, a whole year plus the current quarter when this loads up. So here you could see that Keytruda, here's what it was starting Q2 of 2024, and then it went down, and then it went up, and then it went down, and now it's gone back up. So for Q2 of 2025, when CMS just released that, that actually went up to $59.35, you know, so $1.75 per unit. The invoice cost for this practice was $56.08. So if they administered 30,200 units in this month as the same as they did in January, they would see an impact, an increase of $52,729 on this particular drug. Now, as you go down through here, you can also see that there's several drugs where you're going to see a decrease on it. So here's a negative $36,000 on that on that Somatuline Depot, I think is that line. So you can go down through here and you can take a look. But the overall impact for February is going to be, they're going to be short $64,000 in revenue than what they were expected to receive. Now, that's assuming that invoice cost stayed the same, right? If the invoice cost goes down. And that's also assuming that the payers all implemented that new ASP as well. So lots of variables in that. All right, the last report I'm going to share with you today is under this benchmarks report. Now, that's going to be this provider production by HCPCS. We've always had many requests to see how different practices are reimbursed for drugs. And so this lets you see a benchmark by CPT code. So it's going to, like the other benchmark reports, it's going to default to a provider. You do have these filters up here. So on the include and exclude, this is going to let you see which providers are using the same drugs. I'm going to leave it at all values right now. So you could see down here, and I'm going to sort this on admins. So I did this just so I could see a drug that I was familiar with for explaining this to you. But if I come down through here and I could see that Dr. Clark, when he administers Keytruda, there's 838 other providers that are administering Keytruda as well. And this tells you on average how many times they've administered it, how many units they do. And then here's the meat of this report though. The charge per unit, they're charging $120. The benchmark charge is $130.67. They're getting reimbursed $59.61 per unit, where the benchmark is $56.42 per unit. So you could use this by CPT code, and you can flip over through here. You can look at different providers, include or exclude your providers on how they're, on which drugs they're doing. So if you're an orthopedic practice and you want to do it by specialty, and you want to look and see which particular procedures they're doing, then you could certainly do that as well. All right, that is all of the reports. I know it's a lot of information today. Any questions, Colette?
There aren't any questions.
All right. I just want to remind you guys that under the support tab, we do have that new email for support, and it's now providerclientservices@intrinsic.com. I also wanted to remind you that this is where you can get any of our past webinars, because we do record those and put them there. And you can also see all of these slides that we do for you to see what's in those webinars. And then I just like to leave you with a little funny for the day. And at that note, I will hand it back over to Colette.
Love it. Awesome. Thank you, Karen. Great information. We hope you enjoy it. As always, if you have any questions, let us know at providerclientservices@intrinsic.com. And we look forward to seeing you on April 16th. Have a great day.